Marcus stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror at 2:47 a.m., his bloodshot eyes meeting a stranger's gaze. The man looking back wore yesterday's wrinkled shirt, carried the weight of broken promises, and bore the exhaustion of another day, squandered. At 32, he had become everything he swore he'd never be: mediocre, complacent, and utterly disappointed in himself. The apartment around him told the story of his decline. Empty pizza boxes stacked like monuments to laziness, unopened bills scattered across the coffee table, and a dusty guitar in the corner that hadn't been touched in months. His dreams of becoming a software engineer had dissolved into mindless scrolling through social media, watching others live the life he once envisioned for himself. That morning, Marcus had been passed over for another promotion at his dead-end retail job. His manager, barely 25, had delivered the news with practiced indifference. "Maybe next time, Marcus. You just need to show more initiative." The words echoed in his mind like a death sentence to his ambition, but it was the phone call from his younger sister that shattered his last defense. Sarah, now a successful architect, had called to share her latest achievement, a major project that would reshape their hometown's skyline. As she spoke with infectious enthusiasm, Marcus realized he had nothing to contribute to the conversation except hollow congratulations and fabricated excuses for his own stagnation. "I remember when we were kids," Sarah had said, her voice gentle, but cutting. "You were the one with all the big dreams. You were going to change the world with technology. What happened to that version of you?" What happened indeed? Marcus traced the path of his decline: the abandoned coding courses, the Netflix binges that replaced study sessions, the slow erosion of discipline that had once driven him. He had traded his potential for comfort, his dreams for the illusion of ease. Standing in that mirror's harsh fluorescent light, Marcus made a decision that would alter the trajectory of his existence. He wouldn't just change, he would transform completely. The man in the mirror would become unrecognizable within a year. He grabbed a notebook from his kitchen drawer and began writing. Day 1. The old Marcus dies today. The new one begins now. His hand trembled slightly as he wrote, not from fear, but from the electric anticipation of finally taking control. The first rule he established was brutally simple: no excuses, no exceptions, no negotiations with his lesser self. Every decision would be filtered through one question: does this build the life I deserve, or does it maintain the life I've settled for? As dawn broke through his apartment windows, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope, backed by determination. He understood that transformation wouldn't be a single moment but a series of daily choices, each one either building toward his vision or tearing it down. The mirror that had shown him his failure would now witness his resurrection. Every morning, he would look into those same eyes and see progress, discipline, and the slow but steady emergence of the man he was meant to become. Marcus closed the notebook and looked once more at his reflection. Tomorrow, that man would be 1% better. In a year, he would be unrecognizable. The journey of building the life he deserved had officially begun. The alarm screamed at 5 a.m., and Marcus's hand instinctively reached to hit snooze, then stopped mid-air. This was the first test. In that suspended moment between sleep and consciousness, he made the choice that would define his day. He got up. The cold hardwood floor against his bare feet served as a physical reminder that comfort was the enemy of growth. While his body protested, and his mind conjured 100 reasons to return to bed, Marcus shuffled to the kitchen and began his new morning ritual. Coffee first, but not the usual rushed affair. He measured the grounds precisely, timed the brew, and used those 4 minutes to review his written goals. Each morning, he would read aloud his vision: I am a disciplined, capable software engineer who creates value through technology and lives with purpose. The words felt foreign on his tongue, like speaking a language he was still learning. Week 1 nearly broke him. His body, accustomed to irregular sleep and constant stimulation, rebelled against the new routine. Cravings for junk food intensified. The urge to check social media became almost physical. His mind, deprived of its usual dopamine hits, threw tantrums like a spoiled child. But Marcus had anticipated this resistance. He had read about the neurological basis of habit formation, understanding that his brain would fight to maintain familiar patterns. Each moment of discomfort became proof that he was rewiring his neural pathways, literally reshaping his mind. He implemented what he called micro-victories, small, achievable goals that built momentum, making his bed perfectly each morning, drinking 8 glasses of water daily, reading 10 pages of a programming book before allowing any entertainment. These tiny disciplines served as training wheels for larger transformations. The programming study proved most challenging. After months of mental atrophy, his brain struggled to grasp concepts that once came naturally. Variables, functions, and loops felt like ancient hieroglyphics. Frustration mounted as he realized how much ground he had lost. Instead of surrendering to self-pity, Marcus developed a systematic approach. He broke complex concepts into digestible fragments, spending 30 minutes each evening on foundational skills before attempting anything advanced. When confusion struck, he would step away, take 3 deep breaths, and return with fresh perspective. His social circle noticed the changes first with confusion, then with subtle mockery. Friends invited him to bars, expecting the usual yes. When he declined to study instead, their responses ranged from disappointed to derisive. "You're becoming boring," one friend commented. Marcus realized that some relationships were built on shared mediocrity, and transformation would require difficult choices about who deserved space in his new life. The most profound shift occurred in his relationship with discomfort. Previously, any hint of difficulty sent him running toward distraction. Now, he began to recognize discomfort as a compass pointing toward growth. The burn in his muscles during morning exercises, the mental strain of difficult coding problems, the loneliness of disciplined evenings all became welcome signals that he was moving in the right direction. By month's end, Marcus noticed physical changes in his reflection. His posture had straightened. His eyes held more focus. The soft edges of complacency were sharpening into the defined features of purpose. But the most significant transformation was invisible, a fundamental shift in his identity from someone who wished for change to someone who created it. He updated his notebook. Day 30. The foundation is laid. Now we build the structure. Month 2 brought Marcus face to face with his deepest adversary, his own limiting beliefs. As his technical skills improved and his confidence grew, an insidious voice emerged, whispering familiar refrains of inadequacy. "You're too old to become a programmer. You don't have a computer science degree. Who are you kidding?" The voice belonged to his former self, desperately trying to maintain relevance by sabotaging progress. Marcus recognized this internal resistance as the final guardian of his comfort zone, fighting viciously to preserve the status quo that had kept him safe but unfulfilled. His breakthrough came during a particularly challenging coding session. Struggling with a complex algorithm, Marcus felt the familiar urge to quit rising in his chest. His hands moved toward the laptop lid, ready to close it and retreat to mindless entertainment. But instead of surrendering, he paused and spoke directly to the voice of limitation. "I see you," he said aloud to his empty apartment. "I understand you're trying to protect me from failure, but your protection has become my prison." In that moment of acknowledgement, the voice lost much of its power. Marcus realized he could observe his thoughts without being controlled by them. He developed what he called thought auditing, the practice of examining his mental patterns with detached curiosity. When limiting beliefs arose, instead of fighting them, he would study them like a scientist examining specimens. Where did this thought originate? What evidence supported or contradicted it? What would he tell a friend experiencing the same doubt? This metacognitive awareness extended beyond programming into every area of his transformation. When he caught himself making excuses about exercise, he would pause and investigate the excuse's validity. When social anxiety emerged in professional networking situations, he would observe the feeling without being paralyzed by it. The real test came when Marcus decided to apply for a junior developer position at a local startup. His imposter syndrome screamed in protest, generating a catalog of reasons why he wasn't ready. But he had learned to distinguish between fear of failure and evidence of unpreparedness. The interview process was humbling. His first attempt resulted in rejection, but instead of interpreting this as confirmation of his inadequacy, Marcus requested feedback and used it as data for improvement. The second interview went better. The third revealed areas where his self-study had gaps. Rather than becoming discouraged, Marcus felt energized by these challenges. Each rejection provided specific direction for growth. He wasn't failing, he was gathering intelligence about what success required. During this period, Marcus encountered others on similar transformation journeys. At the local library where he studied, he met Alina, a former teacher learning data science, and David, a mechanic pursuing cybersecurity certification. Their shared struggles created an informal support network of mutual accountability. The hardest part isn't learning the technical skills, Alina observed during one of their study sessions. It's unlearning the story we've told ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of. Her words resonated deeply with Marcus. His greatest enemy hadn't been his lack of formal education or his age, it had been his own narrative of limitation. Every day, he was literally rewriting his personal story, replacing chapters of mediocrity with scenes of growth and possibility. By the end of month 2, Marcus had submitted applications to 5 companies and received responses from 3. 1 rejection, 1 request for a phone screening, and 1 invitation for a technical assessment. The old Marcus would have focused on the rejection. The new Marcus celebrated the 2 opportunities while learning from the feedback. His notebook entry that night. Read, Day 60. I am not the same person who began this journey. The barriers were never external, they were the stories I believed about myself. Today, I choose new stories. Month 3, tested every foundation Marcus had built. The phone screening led to an on-site interview at TechFlow Solutions, a growing startup that developed educational software. The position junior full-stack developer represented everything he had worked toward, but the technical assessment revealed the chasm between his self-study and industry expectations. The coding challenge involved building a web application with features Marcus had never implemented. As he sat in the sterile conference room, fingers hovering over the keyboard, panic began to set in. The familiar voice of his former self whispered seductively, "See, you're not ready. You never will be. Walk away now before you embarrass yourself further." But months of discipline had taught Marcus to recognize panic as information, not instruction. He took 3 deep breaths, compartmentalized the problem, and began writing code. Not perfect code, he was honest about his limitations, but functional. Code that demonstrated his problem-solving approach and willingness to tackle challenges beyond his current skill level. "I don't know how to implement this specific feature," he told the interviewing developer, "but here's how I would research it. And here's what I've built with similar logic." His honesty about his limitations, combined with clear evidence of his learning process, impressed the interviewer more than false confidence would have. The feedback was mixed, but encouraging. "Your technical skills need development, but your approach to learning and problem-solving is exactly what we look for. We'd like to offer you a position with a 3-month probationary period and structured mentorship." Marcus accepted immediately, then spent the remaining weeks before his start date in intensive preparation. He studied 12 hours daily, building practice projects and strengthening his weakest areas. His social life vanished entirely, but he no longer mourned its loss. He had discovered something more valuable than temporary entertainment: the profound satisfaction of earned competence. The first day at TechFlow felt like entering a different universe, surrounded by developers who spoke in technical languages. He was still learning. Marcus felt simultaneously intimidated and exhilarated. His imposter syndrome returned with renewed intensity. But now he possessed tools to manage it. His mentor, Jessica, is a senior developer who had transitioned from marketing 3 years earlier. "Every developer in this room has felt like a fraud at some point," she assured him during their first meeting. "The difference between those who succeed and those who quit is learning to be comfortable with temporary incompetence while you build real competence." The learning curve was steep and unforgiving. Marcus made mistakes that seemed elementary to his colleagues. His code was often inefficient. His questions sometimes revealed fundamental gaps in understanding. But instead of hiding his ignorance, he embraced it as fuel for growth. He developed a systematic approach to learning in a professional environment. Each mistake became a case study. Every code review turned into a masterclass. When he didn't understand something, he researched it thoroughly and shared his findings with the team, turning his learning process into contributions. The transformation in his thinking was profound. Problems that once seemed insurmountable became puzzles to solve. Challenges that previously triggered anxiety now generated excitement. He was rewiring not just his technical skills, but his fundamental relationship with difficulty. His personal relationships underwent parallel evolution. Some friends, unable to relate to his new priorities and lifestyle, gradually drifted away, but new connections emerged: colleagues who shared his passion for growth, fellow learners who understood the value of disciplined pursuit of mastery. Sarah noticed the change during their monthly phone call. "You sound different," she observed. More, present. More sure of yourself." Marcus realized she was right. The confidence wasn't arrogance or pretense. That was the quiet certainty that came from proving to himself that he could commit to difficult goals and achieve them by month's end. Marcus had successfully completed several small projects and received positive feedback in his first formal review. More importantly, he had developed an identity that transcended any specific role or achievement. He wasn't just becoming a developer, he was becoming someone who could learn anything, overcome any challenge, and build any life he deemed worthy of his effort. His notebook entry, Day 90, "I have learned the secret. The person you become in pursuit of a goal is more valuable than the goal itself. Today, I am proud of who I am becoming." 6 months into his transformation, Marcus encountered a truth that surprised him. Success brought its own challenges. As his technical skills sharpened and his confidence solidified, he faced the subtle danger of complacency disguised as achievement. The probationary period at TechFlow had ended with a permanent offer and a salary increase. His code was cleaner, his contributions more valuable, and his colleagues had begun seeking his input on projects. The external validation felt intoxicating after years of mediocrity, but Marcus recognized the trap it represented. "Success is a lousy teacher," Jessica warned during one of their mentorship sessions. "It whispers that you've arrived when you've barely begun the journey. The moment you think you've mastered something is the moment you stop growing." Her words echoed a pattern Marcus had observed in his personal transformation. Each plateau of achievement brought the temptation to coast, to celebrate progress by relaxing the disciplines that had created it. The early morning workouts became optional when he felt fit. The evening study sessions seemed less urgent as his technical confidence grew. But Marcus had learned to recognize these patterns as tests of his commitment to continuous growth. Instead of viewing success as a destination, he began treating it as confirmation that his system worked and validation that bigger challenges were within reach. He established what he called growth triggers, predetermined moments when achievement would signal the need for greater challenges rather than relaxation. when he received his first compliment on his code architecture. Instead of basking in the praise, he signed up for an advanced algorithms course. When a project manager requested him for a high-visibility assignment, he volunteered to learn a new programming framework. This philosophy extended beyond technical skills into every area of his life. Physical fitness became about capability rather than appearance. Financial discipline transformed from saving money to building investment knowledge. Social connections evolved from casual friendships to relationships built on mutual growth and shared values. The most profound shift occurred in Marcus's relationship with failure. What had once been a source of shame and retreat now became valuable data. When a feature he developed contained bugs, he didn't just fix them, he analyzed the root causes and implemented processes to prevent similar issues. When a presentation to stakeholders went poorly, he studied effective communication rather than avoiding future presentations. This reframing of failure as feedback created an upward spiral of learning. Each mistake became a stepping stone to greater competence. Each challenge revealed new areas for development. Marcus began actively seeking situations slightly beyond his current abilities. Knowing that the discomfort zone was where growth occurred, his reputation at TechFlow evolved from promising junior developer to reliable problem solver. Colleagues began approaching him not just for technical expertise but for his perspective on overcoming challenges. Without realizing it, Marcus had become someone others looked to for inspiration and guidance. The irony wasn't lost on him. The man who had spent years avoiding responsibility was now someone others depended on. The person who had feared failure was now helping others navigate setbacks. The individual who had once lacked self-discipline was now a model of consistent growth. But Marcus remained vigilant against pride and complacency. He established regular reality checks, honest assessments of his progress, blind spots, and areas needing attention. He sought feedback aggressively, especially from those who would tell him uncomfortable truths about his performance and character. During this period, Marcus reconnected with his original vision, but found it had evolved. The goal was no longer just becoming a software engineer. It was becoming the kind of person who could build anything he set his mind to achieve. Technical skills were just the current expression of a deeper transformation in his relationship with growth, challenge, and potential. His notebook entry reflected this evolution. Day 180. Mastery is not a destination, but a way of traveling. Today, I understand that the person who can transform once can transform again. The skills that built this version of me can build any version I choose to become. 1 year after staring at his reflection in defeat, Marcus stood before the same mirror, but the man looking back was unrecognizable. The physical changes were obvious: a leaner, stronger body from consistent exercise, clearer skin from better nutrition, and posture that spoke of confidence rather than resignation. But the deeper transformation radiated from his eyes, which now held the steady gaze of someone who had proven to himself that change was not only possible, but inevitable. When backed by disciplined action, the metrics of his transformation told an impressive story. From unemployed retail worker to senior junior developer, a title that made him chuckle at its contradiction. From financially struggling to saving 30% of his income. From social isolation to meaningful relationships built on shared growth and values. From consuming entertainment to creating value. The external changes were remarkable, but they paled in comparison to the internal revolution. Marcus had discovered the fundamental truth that eluded most people: the person you become in pursuit of a worthy goal is infinitely more valuable than the goal itself. His technical skills would evolve, his career would advance, his circumstances would change, but the identity he had forged through disciplined transformation would remain the foundation for every future achievement. The real test of his growth came when TechFlow offered him a promotion to lead developer, contingent on relocating to their Silicon Valley headquarters. The old Marcus would have been paralyzed by the decision. creating elaborate scenarios of potential failure while ultimately defaulting to the comfortable choice. The new Marcus approached it systematically, weighing factors objectively and making the decision based on alignment with his values and long-term vision. He accepted the promotion, not because it was safe or easy, but because it represented the next logical step in his growth trajectory. The Marcus who had once feared change now sought it as an opportunity for expansion, then moved to California, symbolized more than a career advancement. It represented his complete break from the limiting environment and relationships that had supported his former mediocrity. In his new city, surrounded by ambitious professionals and innovative companies, Marcus felt like he had finally found his tribe, but success brought responsibility. Younger developers at the company began seeking his mentorship, drawn by his reputation for patient teaching and systematic problem-solving. Marcus found himself in the role of guide and inspiration, helping others navigate the transformation he had recently completed himself. "How did you do it?" asked Jamie, a junior developer struggling with imposter syndrome. "How did you go from nothing to this so quickly?" Marcus paused, considering the question that contained a fundamental misconception. "I didn't go from nothing," he replied. "I went from potential that was being wasted to potential that was being actualized. The capacity was always there. I just had to develop the discipline to access it consistently." This perspective had become central to Marcus's philosophy. He didn't view his transformation as creating something from nothing, but as removing the barriers that had prevented his authentic self from emerging. The disciplined habits, the growth mindset, the willingness to embrace discomfort, these weren't foreign concepts he had learned, but natural capacities he had rediscovered and refined on the anniversary of his decision to change. Marcus wrote his final entry in the Transformation Notebook. Day 365. "I have built the life I deserve. But more importantly, I have become someone who deserves the life I've built." The skills, habits, and mindset that created this transformation are not temporary tools but permanent aspects of who I am. Tomorrow begins not the maintenance of what I've achieved, but the next phase of what I'm becoming. He closed the notebook and looked once more in the mirror. The man reflected there, smiled back with quiet satisfaction, not the satisfaction of arrival, but the deeper contentment of knowing that wherever life led next, he possessed the tools to build whatever future he deemed worthy of his effort. Marcus had learned the ultimate lesson. You don't get the life you want, you get the life you build. And he had become someone who could build anything,